Nail them down.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, and we are glad to have everyone here. This is our August 25th Scott County Fiscal Court business meeting, and I'd like to call us to order. I'd like to ask everyone in the room to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hostetter, you lead us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Ms. Hamilton, would you do me the favor and call the roll?
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison? Mr. Davila? Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Culbertson?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. With that said, we will move on down in our agenda. Minutes from our previous meeting were shared via email. Were there any questions or comments related to those minutes as presented?
Motion approved as presented.
Motion from Mr. Lyons, a second from Mr. Corman. Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, transfers as presented in your packet. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Motion from Mr. Wallace. Second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 6, bills and hand checks as presented in your packet. Any questions or comments? Motion from Mr. Corman. Would there be a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. With that, we are now going to celebrate excellence and service and dedication from 3 of our retiring Sheriff's Department employees and staff that have dedicated many years to our community and done a tremendous job of serving our community, and we are indebted to your service. And Sheriff Hampton thought it was appropriate to do a proclamation, and I and the court did as well. So I'm going to ask Cam, our county attorney, to please read each proclamation individually, and then we'll go from there.
Thanks, Judge. I'm happy to do that. And I would just like to say on behalf of the County Attorney's Office, we appreciate the service of you 3 individuals over the years. It's been great to work with. In no particular order. So the first one is for Mike Cottle. Proclamation, Scott County, Kentucky, honoring Lieutenant Mike Cottle for a dedicated career of service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Mike Cottle began his career with the Scott County Sheriff's Department in July of 2000 as a patrol deputy, and whereas Mike Cottle was a very active deputy and was very involved in the community, and whereas Mike Cottle previously served as a detective, and whereas in 2011 Mike Cottle was promoted to sergeant, and whereas as sergeant Mike Cottle served as a leader, took the position seriously and spent much time training and caring for his deputies, and whereas in 2007 Mike Cottle was assigned as the commander over detectives, where he oversaw the investigation of many serious crimes, and whereas in 2022 Mike Cottle was promoted to lieutenant, where he remained until his retirement in 2022. And whereas it is difficult to overstate the importance and value that Lieutenant Cottle brought to the Scott County Sheriff's Office and to Scott County over his 22-year career, now, therefore, let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington hereby honor and praise Lieutenant Mike Cottle for his long career of distinguished and dedicated service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff Hampton, would you, just say a couple words about each deputy, or you want to wait till the end? Okay, we'll do the next one, and then we'll do individual and group pictures. I think group picture would be a good thing as well.
Next up is Gerald Porter. A proclamation, Scott County, Kentucky, honoring Chief Deputy Gerald Porter for a dedicated career of service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Gerald Porter began his career at the Scott County Sheriff's Office in January of 1994 as a patrol deputy. And whereas as patrol deputy, Gerald Porter demonstrated a keen interest in learning all about law enforcement, became the only collision reconstructionist in Scott County, and served as supervisor of third shift from 2000 to 2003. And whereas in 2011, Gerald Porter was promoted to lieutenant and named as chief deputy. And whereas during a time of change, Gerald Porter worked closely with the sheriff, county judge executive, fiscal court, and other leaders within the sheriff's office to bring about a change of culture, policies, and practices at the Scott County Sheriff's Office. And whereas Gerald Porter was instrumental in developing a command structure, creating a policy manual, updating hiring processes, and helping the Scott County Sheriff's Office become an accredited law enforcement agency. And whereas in 2012, Gerald Porter was promoted to captain, at which time his duties included overseeing all patrol and administrative functions. And whereas in 2020, Gerald Porter was named chief deputy and continued to lead the Scott County Sheriff's Office, including overseeing the budgeting and hiring process, remaining in this position until his retirement in August 2022. And whereas Chief Deputy Gerald Porter is one of the longest-serving full-time deputies in the history of the Scott County Sheriff's Office, having served and protected Scott County with pride and honor. Now, therefore, let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington hereby honor and praise Chief Deputy Gerald Porter for his long career of distinguished and dedicated service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office, dated this 25th day of August, 2022. And last but not least, Josh Hutchinson. Proclamation, Scott County, Kentucky, honoring Captain Josh Hutchinson for a dedicated career of service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Josh Hutchinson began his career at the Scott County Sheriff's Office in June 2004 as a patrol deputy, and whereas as patrol deputy, Josh Hutchinson was very eager to learn and train and become the best he could be for his fellow deputies and his community. And whereas during his time as patrol deputy, Josh Hutchinson went through rigorous training to become a certified collision reconstructionist, one of only 3 in Scott County at the time. And whereas in 2011, Josh Hutchinson was promoted to sergeant and took over leadership of a squad of deputies, where he proved to be very adept at motivating people and always encouraged them to do their best. And whereas in 2012, Josh Hutchinson was promoted to lieutenant and assigned as supervisor over all second and third shift deputies during a time. And whereas during a time of change at the sheriff's office, Josh Hutchinson was instrumental in helping with several areas, including personnel restructuring and policy development. And whereas Josh Hutchinson developed a joint reconstruction unit with the Georgetown Police Department and served as commander of the unit. And whereas in 2022, Josh Hutchinson was promoted to captain and became the commander over all patrol operations and personnel, remaining in this position until his retirement in August of 2022. And whereas Captain Josh Hutchinson has served his community and the Scott County Sheriff's Office with trust, admirability, pride, and honor. Now, therefore, let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington hereby honor and praise Captain Josh Hutchinson for his long career of distinguished and dedicated service to the Scott County Sheriff's Office, dated this 25th day of August, 2022.
So could we have a few words from Sheriff?
I think Cam said it all there. But there is much more to say. It's been a good ride with these guys. It's not only, I've been sheriff almost 12 years now, and but I've worked with all these gentlemen for many years on the street. So not only being their boss, I'm also a peer to them and out there in the trenches, in the good times and in the bad. And we always stuck together. I know when I was elected, I was lost as hell. I didn't know what to do. Chief Porter stepped up, and he knew that I wanted to create a command rank structure, and that was very important to us. And everybody in this room, you see that even the ones that aren't leaving, they are part of my command staff, and some of them, well, all of them are stepping up into more leadership roles with all of these leaving. It's hard to look over and see over 70 years of experience leaving your agency, but it's bittersweet for them. They all deserve it. I'm going to miss them dearly. I'm a little bit jealous. But anyway, I just appreciate y'all. Love y'all so much. Thank you for your service.
I'd like to ask the court if we could take some individual pictures with the court and Sheriff Hampton, and then we'll do a group picture. And then if any of our retirees would like to share a comment, we'd certainly entertain that. No. now, Josh, they said they had to. Yes. Josh, they said they had to drag you here. So Mike Cottle, you and your family, if you want to come, we'll. She should probably be getting approximations. I mean, it's awesome to be a American man. I'm going to say. No, get on over here. You don't want to. Sheriff, you know they're up in here, don't you? All right. Here, Stacy, you straighten this all up here. Here, you get in there, Sheriff, and I'm going to.
Pam, or Robo, whatever they call him. Rick, step up and stand. Rick, step up.
Can't come up with something better than that, Rick.
Okay. Keep smiling.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Don't leave, Mike.
Y'all, y'all sit down.
He's going to tell us what he really thinks now. Last words? Yeah. Information's already been dealt out.
I don't have television, so it doesn't make any difference to me. Thank y'all very much. It means a lot to us. It really does. I've enjoyed my career. Scott County's been a great place to work, and it always has been, like I told you in the email, Judge. It really makes us, especially the employees, feel better because we feel like we're valued, and especially with the changes we've made in the past few years. You know, Jeff, with the emails, and we feel like we're being heard, and the pay raises, and I just think y'all have done a good thing, and I hope the positivity just keeps going in the future. And we're always here. If you need us, don't hesitate to call us. I'll be happy to tell you my opinion. And it's been a pleasure working with all y'all.
You all are our most valuable resource, providing the services that you all do day in and day out. And the court, I salute the court for making it a priority to make that change to do what's right by our employees.
Yeah, well, we see it and we appreciate it, and I can tell you that. And it's been a joy to work here and serve my community for the past 18 years here. But thank y'all very much for allowing me and giving me the opportunity to serve, and I appreciate it.
No, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I just got one last thing, and Chief and Mike, if you want to speak. I forgot to recognize the families of our retirees here and what it means to us for your support to them, of the phone calls and coming out in the middle of the night and just putting up with them and supporting them and their role at work. So thank you very much to the families. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll second that as well. Chief, Mike, all right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. We'll move on now to Resolution 22-09, Law Enforcement Grant. Cam, would you do the honor of reading that resolution?
Yes. Scott Fiscal Court Resolution Number 22-09. A resolution of Scott County, Kentucky, authorizing the judge executive to make application for and upon arrival to enter into an agreement with the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, KOHS, to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by KOHS to facilitate and administer the project and to act as the authorized correspondent for this project. Whereas Scott County, Kentucky desires to make an application for law enforcement protection program funds for a project to be administered by Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, and whereas it is recognized that an application for an approval of Kentucky Office of Homeland Security funds impose certain obligations and responsibilities upon the county. Now therefore be it resolved this 25th day of August 2022 by Scott County, Kentucky, that the judge executive is hereby authorized to execute and furnish all required documentation, including a memorandum of agreement as may be required by KOHS for the furtherance of the above referenced project, and to act as the authorized correspondent for said project. And assuming you approve it, be done today, August 25th.
We've shared details on this by email, but would you share just a little bit more?
Yes, sir. I actually filed this grant originally in 2020, but it's a continuing grant. I was contacted by grant personnel sometime earlier in the month. They said we were at the top of the list. They needed an updated resolution and signed copy. We are set to receive around $17,380 in grant funding for the purchase of 20 new tasers that we need to replace older tasers. The total cost of the tasers is around $69,000, split over a 5-year period.
What questions would anyone have?
Is that an annual,
This grant is an annual ongoing grant. It's the Law Enforcement Protection Program grant. They just kind of go down the list, and it cycles through yearly, but it can be accepted throughout the year at any time.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you want the resolution now, or do you want?
You can send it tomorrow, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll move on to ordinance 22-10, first reading Mallard Point speed limit.
Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance 22-10, an ordinance related to speed limits in Mallard Point subdivision. Whereas Mallard Point subdivision is a developed residential area in Scott County, ready to speed out of here. Whereas in the interest of public safety, certain regulations are required for the operation of automobile vehicle traffic in Scott County. And whereas pursuant to KRS 67.083, Scott County Fiscal Court has the authority to enact ordinances regarding the provision of streets and roads and enforcement of traffic regulations. And whereas pursuant to KRS 189.395A, Scott County may by ordinance establish speed limits within its own jurisdiction. And whereas due to the winding, curving, and steep nature of the county roads located in the Mallard Point subdivision, in the interest of public safety and as requested by residents of Mallard Point subdivision, it is prudent to establish a speed limit in Mallard Point subdivision lower than the default speed limit of 35 miles per hour in residential districts. Now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the Fiscal Court for Scott County, Kentucky, that the speed limit for motor vehicles on all roads located within Mallard Point subdivision shall be 25 miles per hour. These roads are Mallard Point Drive, Broadbill Court, Ringbill Court, Spoonbill Court, Drake Lane, Blue Wing Court, White Wing Court, Quandy Court, Whistler Court, Widgeon Way, Widgeon Court, Pinnacle Point, Mallard Point Court, Blue Bill Court, Bluffhead Court, Golden Eye Court, Red Wing Court, Black Duck Drive, Sheldrake Court, Blackberry Ridge Court, Shoveler Court, Merganser Court, Green Wing Court, Teal Court, Doe Court, Pintail Court, Falcon Court, Wood Duck Lane, Eider Court, Brant Court, Canvasback Court, and additional roads as may be added to Mallard Point subdivision. Signs shall be conspicuously posted by the road department in the Mallard Point subdivision to provide notice of this speed limit. All peace officers shall have the authority to enforce this speed limit consistent with the provisions of Kentucky law. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage and publication. First reading approved August 25th, 2022.
Questions or comments?
Judge, I just had one question. Was this requested by the HOA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Motion. We have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other questions or comments? I want to make sure, because I think you might have left out like lame duck court. I couldn't leave it out. All right.
I didn't.
No other questions or comments.
Yeah, I could put some joke roads in there.
Is there a motion? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will now go to ordinance 2211, first reading. It's a text amendment for zoning commercial landscape operations. Matt Summers has joined us on the Zoom. Matt, can you hear me?
Yes.
Would you like to make any comments? We can hear you well.
Okay.
Matt, would you like?
I can go over the proposed amendment if you'd like.
Cam will read the text amendment, but it really just outlines and gives structure to landscape operations out in the county. And is it in A1 zones? Is that correct? Or any zone?
For the county, it has some stipulations for other zones, but as far as county, the property in the county, it would mostly impact A1 zones. That's where we see most of these.
Okay. Cam, do you care to read the text?
Yes,
and then if anyone has any questions for Matt, then we can go from there.
Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 22-11. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of Scott County, Kentucky, and the cities of Georgetown, Sadieville, and Stamping Ground. Add that. Pertaining to commercial landscape operations. Whereas the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission has approved a text amendment to the zoning ordinance of Scott County, Kentucky, and the cities of Georgetown, Sadieville, and Stamping Ground, known as zoning ordinance, regarding commercial landscape operations. Now therefore be it ordained by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. 1, Section 2.1 of the zoning ordinance is amended to add the following definition in alphabetic order, with the extant definitions being between the definitions of commercial floor area and commission. Commercial landscape operation: the sale and/or provision of tree, lawn, and landscaping goods or services, or grounds maintenance to others. Such uses may specifically include: A, the sale or provision or use of landscaping materials, including without limitation mulch, sod, trees, grasses, flowers, grown or produced on or off of the subject property. B, mowing, planting, pruning, and mulching. C, snow and ice maintenance, management, and removal. D, nurseries and greenhouses. And E, office buildings and facilities for the storage, repair, and maintenance of materials and equipment reasonably necessary for providing these goods and/or services. 2, in order to add commercial landscape operations to the list of conditional uses in A1 districts, Section 4.2 is amended by adding a new Section 4.2M as follows: M, commercial landscape operations. 3, by adding commercial landscape operations to the list of permitted uses in B2 districts, Section 4.421 is amended by adding a new Section 4.421G as follows: G, commercial landscape operations. 4, by adding commercial landscape operations to the list of conditional uses in B4 districts, Section 4.442 is amended by adding a new Section 4.442D as follows: D, commercial landscape operations. 5, by adding commercial landscape operations to the list of permitted uses in B5 districts, Section 4.451 is amended by adding a new Section 4.451G as follows: G, commercial landscape operations. 6, by adding commercial landscape operations to the list of permitted uses in I1 districts, Section 4.51 is amended by adding a new Section 4.51G as follows: G, commercial landscape operations. 7, effective date: this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication. First reading approved 8/25/2022.
Questions or comments for Matt or anyone?
I've got one question, Matt. So currently, if I'm in an A1 district and I want to run a conditional or a commercial landscape operation off of my property, I don't have a zone change. All I have to do is get a conditional use permit. Is that correct? And now it's going to be requirement that they have to get a B or a business zone class.
So this wouldn't change that. It would still be a conditional use permit in the A1 zone. What this does is it, I guess it codifies an ordinance, something that's been a long held opinion of the Planning Commission, that these were, whether or not they were, I guess, specifically listed as conditional uses in the A1, they were allowable as a conditional use in the A1 zoning district. This just, it specifically adds it to those lists of conditional uses.
Okay.
So if I understand correctly, it's been a long time practice, but it was never on paper.
Gotcha.
And now we've done that. Any other questions or comments? Motion from anyone? Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments?
Matt, were you going to say something else? Or?
Oh, no, I was just going to give an example,
Okay.
a couple of them that exist in the county, but that's
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That's the first reading. We will bring it back at our next regularly scheduled meeting for a second reading and then publication. Thank you, Matt, for your time.
Thank you.
Turn it over to Mr. Mudrack and Mr. Runyon at this time for EMS new hires.
Judge Magistrates, on behalf of Chris Runyon, I'm pleased to recommend two appointments. One is a confirmation of an emergency hire that Judge Covington shared with you last week. If I'm not mistaken, it was last week. Yes, it was last week. That was to make West Hill a paramedic effective August the 22nd at $15.78 an hour. So I'm just be asking you to confirm that here in a second. And then the other appointment.
And circling back to that, Mr. Hill was returning from service in the reserves?
Correct. He was deployed, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And Also, then we are recommending the appointment of Cody Money as an EMT effective Wednesday, September the 7th at $13.17 an hour. And Cody, just pleased to say that he holds an associate's degree and has more than 90 years of experience as an EMT. So another person with a lot of good education experience will be joining our team. And he's currently working as an EMT with the Shelby County EMS. So we've been able to recruit somebody from a nearby county.
Questions or comments?
We do both these at once, or do we just separate?
I think we could do them. She has a
No, we're good,
as one. Just
together.
okay. That's why. Okay. So I'm gonna just to recapitulate. So it's West Hill, August 22nd at 1578, and Cody Money on September 7th at 13.17 an hour.
Motion for Mr. Lyons,
Second.
second for Mr. Wallace. Any other questions or comments?
What's that do to your staffing?
Down.
We talk about it all the time.
Right, we do, Rick, and so that'll leave us one position short. We have, unfortunately, an long-term employee with us that's will be retiring in September, so we'll be down 2 once that happens. I think he has about 8 or 10 more shifts with us, so. We do.
Any other questions or comments? So we had a motion, we had a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will now move to fire department promotions.
Yes.
Chris, thank you. And Jeff and John, will you share? I can just tell you all that the amount of effort and work that went into this process just shows the level of professionalism that we have and leadership we have. And I'm excited about the promotions and the leadership that will be given opportunities. So I'll let you all go from there.
Sure. And I'll just echo some of your comments. When John told me what we were heading into back in April, I said, well, this is going to be a busy summer. And it has been a very busy summer with the recruit firefighter process, the battalion chief for training and development, battalion chief position, the captain position, lieutenant position. There's been a lot. And retirements, there's been a lot of activity in the fire department. And I was mentioning this to John, I don't think there's ever going to be, probably in a long time from now, this many promotions at one time, maybe for many, many years in the fire department. So this is a pretty special time for the fire department, and it's really a change of the guard, if you will, I think, is kind of what's going on. I'm going to let John talk about the process. I think it's important to hear about some of the processes that have been conducted. And then what I can do when he finishes that, then I'll come back and just read off the names of those who are being promoted and the pay rate. And John also wants to get the hiring list approved. Did you bring those 2 lists with you by any chance? For captain, lieutenant?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's on the email.
Is it on?
Yeah, we got it on the email.
Okay. Well, at least I'll present to you those promotions, but I'll let John just talk about the process.
Yeah. Judge, magistrates, thank you all. Like Jeff said, it's been very busy, but one of the things we looked at before we started the promotional process for the captain and lieutenant, we wanted to have a process that was fair, that was equitable for everybody, that, gave everybody a fair shot. So, you all approved a policy change back in February or March, sometime around there, to where basically the captain and lieutenant process basically consists of a written exam, assessment exercises, and then an oral interview. One of the things we did this year is we contracted out with a company called Testing for Public Safety. So basically that company came in, they administered the exam, and they administered the assessment exercise portion of this process. And the assessment exercise portion basically is where you really test someone on what they know, whether how to deal with personnel issues, how to deal with fire scenes, wreck scenes. So that's a big part of what their job consists of. And this company administered all that. We had 3 individuals from 3 surrounding fire departments that sat on the panel of that. So it wasn't none of our people in there grading or anything. It was outside fire department, you know, I think battalion chiefs and captain positions that were basically scoring our guys as they did their assessment exercises. So, you know, we put them through that. Again, it's a lengthy process, you know, and everybody's ready to be done with it, you know, because a lot of study and a lot of preparation went into that. So, but really proud of all of them. That I think we had 8 candidates that tried out for the lieutenant's position, and then we had 5 candidates test for the captain position. And then the battalion chief position was the oral interview. Myself, Jeff, I think Chris Running was there. We brought a major from Lexington Fire Department, Jared Holland, sat on that panel. So they basically, you know, came in and brought them in for an interview. And then the panel basically gave me their recommendation, and I took everything in consideration on naming the next 2 battalion chiefs. But, you know, we wanted to make sure it was done correctly, and, you know, a lot of work went into it, but it, you know, it was the right thing to do. But appreciate all your all support in that as well.
I really appreciate the professionalism, and speaks volumes about our leadership and the effort that went into it.
Okay, so on behalf of Chief Ward and the entire fire department, I'm pleased to recommend the promotion of 7 individuals. And I'll read off their names and the position they're moving to, and then the new pay rate. And all these will take effect on September the 3rd, which is the first day in the next pay period. So Tommy Wright will be moving from captain to battalion chief, whose new rate of pay will be $22.99 an hour. Dennis Dickerman will be moving from captain to battalion chief at $22.99 an hour as well. John Carter will be moving from a lieutenant to a captain at $19.79 an hour. Jonathan White will move from lieutenant to captain at $18.80 an hour. Jeremy Barnett from firefighter to lieutenant at $16.78 an hour. Zach Anderson from firefighter to lieutenant at $16.78 an hour. And Justin Birchfield from firefighter to lieutenant at $15.89 an hour. So I'm very pleased to make that recommendation to the court.
Questions or comments? Would there be a motion? Motion from Mr. Kelly Corman, second from Mr. Rick Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All.
One quick question. On the 3 motions to lieutenant, there's a little bit of difference in pay. Is that based on the time?
It's based upon the our compensation structure, and the first 2 listed with the higher pay rate, they are above that 5-year plateau with total service credit, and the other one's just a little bit below. So Jeremy Barnett had a bachelor's degree, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 even.
I think so.
So
which bumped him into that
next tier, yeah. You're welcome.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
We can, if you want, we can vote on the hiring list. You've already sent it out. Do you
Well-
want to approve that?
No, I don't think I've sent that out. This.
We haven't got the hiring list.
No, we haven't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think what we could do is present that at the next meeting.
I got an email tonight with a list. I didn't see what it was. I haven't printed it yet. I thought that's what it was.
It was this list that I
Okay.
just read off. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you all. Number 13, Facilities Agreement Renewal, Parks and Recreation Board of Education. This is a renewal. Nothing has changed in that agreement. Any questions or comments to that proposed agreement? There's nothing changed. It's the same thing. Would there be a motion to accept as presented? Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 14, the Extension Board tax rate. The Extension Board has adopted the following: real property 1.76, personal property 3.12, and motor vehicle 1.6. And we need to vote to acknowledge receipt.
And that's the compensating rate?
That is below.
Okay, below the.
Well, let me, what was recommended and shared as the compensating rate was 1.8 for real property. After looking at the dollar figures and looking at the numbers, Michelle and Tim Jenkins both really helped tremendously. Made the I made the recommendation to the Ag Extension Board of looking at 1.76. That would have a 3.85% growth.
Yeah, growth.
And
Yeah.
it stays below the 4%. So it's weird because they can say DLG figures up that number. DLG then sends it to the UK. UK then sends it to your local ag extension agent for the recommendation. And there is a clause in the KRS that's called minimum revenue threshold. And as long as your threshold, your revenue stays below that threshold, they can actually say that 1.8 was compensating rate because of the minimum threshold. Now, Michelle, if I have said anything that is not correct, please don't hesitate to correct me. So after we had talked about this, we actually revisited it and, really wanted to try to stay true to that, trying to stay below the 4%. And that's where the 1.76 came in. And then on personal property, originally they had looked at 3.26, but came back after an adjustment and looked at 3.12 for personal property, which is at 3.9%. So I hope that's clear as mud.
Yeah, ultimately, what you're saying is the county and the health board and the extension board and the library board have all taken the compensating rate.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Motion.
And I'll let the record
and,
reflect that
well,
you are the representative.
Yes, I am the representative. And it's, all of them stay below the 4%.
Right.
That's the true statement.
That's the.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
day
the
one.
true statement.
Second.
So, second, any other questions or comments?
This is a vote just to acknowledge.
To acknowledge receipt. So we've got a motion, we got a second. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move to something that I'm looking forward to, and we'll ask Mike Carroll and Monica Sumner to take over from here and share. A lot of work's gone into this. We have met multiple times with the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Hampton, some of his staff. We've met with County Clerk Rebecca Johnson and her staff multiple times, and trying to make sure that the plans presented would meet the needs of those offices. And I'm very excited about the prospects of what's being presented, and I will share some documents here, and then they are also on our monitors, so anyone here in our courtroom can see as well. But Monica, appreciate the work that you all have done, and really we'll turn it over to you all and your team.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Our presentation is inverted from what you have on your list. So
Okay.
the first slide you're going to see is actually the EMS floor plan,
Okay.
if that's okay.
No, and no, that's great. Now, just as a piece of information, I am working along with Mike and Monica, and we've also worked with Chris Runyon and his team, identifying a site that meets the need of the agency, and that site would be strategically placed that will enable us to address needs for shorter response times in the eastern part of the county, but also give us access to the Interstate 75. And by doing this strategically and looking at multiple pieces of data, from runs and call volume. What we really feel like is that the placement at this site will positively impact all response times and make them shorter. But we have a little work left to do on the site before we can share any more information, and we hope to be able to share at our next meeting possibly. So today, all I'm asking you to consider is the floor plan that is presented, and please know that we are working on a site plan. The site plan, one other piece of information, we've also met with City of Georgetown staff from the fire and Mayor Prather, and the plan is that this site will meet the needs of both our Georgetown Scott County EMS agency, but also a future City of Georgetown Fire Department location, and that's for a future date. So this site would be home to both, but we're looking at and focusing on the EMS portion today. So I'll turn it over to Monica.
Judge, before we get, I just need to, and just so I'm looking at this, I don't want to get down the weeds too early. Would the fire department, as she's presenting it, would it be down by the area where it says floor plan, or would it be opposite of the bay area? So I'm just trying to.
Neither. The fire department?
Yes.
It's a separate bill.
It'd be a separate.
Totally
so the
separate.
way they set up their utilities, like pipes and all that stuff, it doesn't make a difference.
So
what side it's
I
on.
will turn it over to Mike and Monica to speak to that, but they can co-locate both offices, and when we go first and build, the utilities will be located knowing that we know the location of the fire department building. For efficiency, we don't want to have to go back and dig anything else up. We just want to extend.
Okay. Well, thank you for. I'm
Yeah.
just as I'm looking at it,
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it in my mind. Okay.
Well, on that topic, that's the perfect lead-in. Ideally, we would have this EMS building that you're looking at, and then some distance from that would be located a fire station, and the vision is that there would be a public parking lot in between the two for visitors, guests, small lot, and to aid in the use of the training facilities or public meeting rooms. So the vision is that these two buildings will be co-located. They will be designed in a way that they would be complementary to one another, but have individual presence on the site and share some parking, and then obviously the access to utilities is a good point. What you're looking at is we just did some simple color blocking so your eyes could land on the different components of the building. The light blue area is a training facility with one large training area, some storage and support space, and then 3 smaller classrooms to facilitate training. The green area is highlighted as administration. So that's where the front door to the facility is, the offices and support to run the department. The yellow is the living quarters, if you will, the day room, locker rooms, and so on for the employees and staff. And then the bay, which will house 6 EMS vehicles that you see there in 3 double bays to the rear of the building.
Questions, comments?
So in designing this, and I think JR could probably help me on this, when this is designed, I'm thinking as far as efficiency, and I'm sure y'all put LED and everything, and
Of
as far
course.
as that goes.
Yes.
But now, in the bay, that is heated by gas, is that correct? That it's, or do you all have it set up where it's going to be heated by electric?
Typically, it's gas.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we would prefer.
Because it's more efficient, I think, to heat
Yes.
up, and as far as.
It definitely is.
For the type of heating that we typically put in maintenance bays or public safety bays, it's an infrared heat system. So it just really heats the environment. You're not blowing a lot of air around.
Right.
Of course, we're starting the vehicles, we have to have an exhaust system to, make sure that nobody's exposed to any type of CO2 issues in there. But yeah, it's typically gas.
And it's built on a crawl? not on a slab? Or do you have, is it slab out?
It would likely be a slab, yes.
Okay.
You know, would we spec out on the HVAC for the main building, possibly geothermal?
We would investigate the possibility.
Okay.
But, you know, getting the geotech reports back on this site would be a big.
So that
Rock, well, in Scott County, we're going through rock no matter what.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of geotech and site survey, we've been given permission to do preliminary testing on the site, and we need to do that, just doing our due diligence. And, you know, my question is, do we need to approve doing that? That's a good question. Mike, I'm going to let you go forward. I'm going to ask Cam to think about that while we
Okay.
move forward.
Okay. Well, the first steps of any project is to work with the end user of the facility, like we've done here, get a layout that accommodates the need, and then we move forward with these other things. Site investigation, deciding what type of utilities we have, whether it's gas, electric, choosing the lighting, choosing the mechanical systems. So we're in order to do that once we get these, once we get this plan approved as a good direction for the end user.
And the siding, it'll be similar to the rest of them, stone and metal roofs, is generally.
I'm sure it needs to look appropriate in the area that it's going in, but we have not made any decision yet about what the outside would look like.
And what I have commented to Monica and Mike, the building needs to complement or be very similar to the future fire station.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to collaborate on that exterior. But looking at cost, could we use decorative metal siding? And there's a variety of that now. That I'm not talking about a Morton building.
No,
There's
yeah.
decorative metal siding that would be less expensive than a masonry base or using masonry. And you all feel like that would
It
be
would, yes.
a real cost savings.
Yes.
And I'd like to turn Branch Secretary Carol loose on, giving us some options that is cost effective, but still looks, presents it as an official building, government Scott County building.
And that has, I think that has an efficiency foam behind it or something to basically keep
It would,
things.
yes.
Yeah, the heat
yes.
in.
It would be well insulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The training that our EMS department does, not only for their staff, but out in the community. I recently received an email from Patty Burnside at the library, and just complimenting it, what a great job that EMS staff had done doing a update on CPR and AED at the library, and they do that all over the place. They train our fire staff, they train multiple employees, and having this space along with our paramedic certification program, having this space for that is, I think, critical moving forward. Now, one thing that, I've looked at these things 8,000 times, and
Something's jumping out right now, right?
something's jumping out.
Yes.
Like that entrance out of the lobby into the training room
Yes.
is, I think it's appropriate, but I worry about having wide, like stretchers trying to get into that training room. Do you need a double door somewhere there? And Chris, tell me if I'm.
That would be useful if given a roll-up door.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, so just make a note. And I hate to even say that because, like we've looked at this 18,000 times. Yeah, and I'm bringing it up tonight.
I'm sitting here thinking, why didn't Mike think about that?
It's Mike's fault.
Right.
So, what other questions or comments does anyone have? I think it's meets the needs. I think it's efficient, and I think it will serve our community for many years.
Just recently, I guess Monday, City Council approved a new baby box going in at / fire station down at the bottom of the hill. That's not a, it's not a big deal, but as far as taking up space, but I just thought it might be, we might ought to pass along some of that info, because maybe we would want one in the future, I don't know that, but to.
Mike was very helpful on the, on the structural.
We looked at that facility to recommend where the baby box should go. And, you know, it's one of those things, I'll be honest with you, I'd never heard of the baby box until Judge Covington asked me to look into it. It seems like it's almost as bad as it is to say we need this baby box, but it's a useful thing to have on public facilities like this. I mean, you know, literally, when you put it in a new facility, there's not gonna be much cost.
Right, that's true.
So could we look at the parking and maybe the, you know, an appropriate place to rough in an opening? And then even, you know, run the electricity or whatever else would be required, just to have it there, that when we wanted to, or if we wanted to elect to do it before we built it, that it'd be easy to do, if we could just make note of that. And then since Rick brought it up, I was going to bring it up at the end. It was approved Monday night at City Council. City Council technically owns the building, and we appreciate their efforts, and they did a very nice thing. They're going to have a plaque beside the baby box honoring Marvin Thompson, and he and his wife have worked many, many years with the Non-Alone Pregnancy Center. Yeah, so.
Judge, this is a question for Chris. That might be more of a logistical question. So I'm looking here at this plan. It's got director and admin. I think there's 4 admin offices and a director's office. Is the plan for your all's offices to relocate to this area and leave, I think it's Station 1, to leave Station 1 to come out to this area?
And the reason being is because they are involved in the training and education.
Okay.
And not having to drive,
Yeah,
that's the purpose.
I understand.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's exactly it. It's just logistics, and all of our admin team are paramedics and educators, and it's just a group effort.
And really, what you mentioned to me is you know, like one of your staff, their area of expertise or strength might be X, and your other staff member might be stronger with teaching CPR or stroke, saving, life-saving techniques. So, you know, that's the reason. Good question. Any other comments? And would there be a motion to approve?
I had one question.
Yes, sir.
The training room only has one entrance and exit. Would it be beneficial to have an exit to that hallway? I mean, if you've got a big group there training, you want to send
Yes.
them out to breakout rooms, this should be a.
Yes, and that may be a room where we put an exterior door to accommodate training materials being brought in too.
Okay.
So I think that's something we can visit and talk about. Yes, sir.
But for the purpose, and I think it's a perfect, I agree, that's a needed consideration. But for the purpose of like getting pricing and such, that I think that would be a minimal thing on the overall cost. But I think we do need to add, and you know, do you add a double door right across from the training room storage door?
Right.
You know, I don't know. That's consideration.
It's a good question. We can talk about that and
Yeah.
make some decisions.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to keep us from approving this.
No.
This is just adding doors in different places.
So, any other comments, and would there be a motion to, if not, would there be a motion to approve as presented?
I'll make the motion, Judge.
Second for Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments?
So what does this push forward? I mean, what are we?
Okay. Our next topic, we'll talk about the sheriff clerk's office. Then I'm going to ask you to consider Mike's recommendation of a professional estimator. We'll have that conversation. Whichever way the court goes, the next question is preparing bid documents. Correct, Mike and
Yes.
Monica?
I guess that's kind of what I'm asking. So if we say yes to this, then that automatically is going to shoot this one to that next step,
Yeah.
Yes,
regardless of our other.
Right.
upper
Right.
levels.
yes.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Yes, we'd like the court's approval that this concept design meets your needs, and then we'll continue to develop the project. Yes.
We got a motion and a second. Mike Carroll has a,
No, I just wanted to further what Rick was saying is the city has hired us to design the fire station too. So we'll be working on both buildings on the site, and
Yes.
and so we will be working simultaneously on those buildings. So as Judge Covington said, they complement each other. You're not going to have one building that looks like this and one building. It's going to be a campus really of two separate buildings. So that will be the next step once the site is confirmed that we can utilize that site.
and let me add one other thing, but we received $11.1 million in ARPA funding. We have allocated $10 million of that through help me, Michelle. Revenue loss. Thank you, Alvin. So what's been recommended by Compass Municipal Advisors and Michael George is that 1.1 million that's left that we need to document, that it fits the needs on the EMS building.
Yeah, it's approved to be.
Right, and it's approved to be used, and it's very smart of us to use that and take that avenue. So, and of course, our partners at the city will be, they'll be, 50% partners in the expenses on the construction of this. So our half, whatever our half is, 1.1 of it's going to come from that ARPA dollar. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Next, I'd like to ask you to turn to the next page, and it's the site plan. Monica, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. What you're looking at is the road department. You locate that. I'm used to having a pointer, so I'm sorry. The green colored site that you're seeing is the location for the sheriff and clerk's building. The gray areas represent parking lots. You can see the driveways and such. The building is shown as white. Everything is labeled. I trust you can read that on your handout there. The drive that you see to the low side of the drawing that loops around through the building is a Sallyport facility for the Sheriff's Department. That is at a lower level. This drawing presents itself as flat. However, if you're familiar with the topography out there, it is anything but flat. We have put the building and the parking lots in the flattest place possible to minimize extra earth moving and so on. At this point, it doesn't look like we're going to have any retaining walls or go to any extraordinary lengths to manage the site. We are utilizing the slope on that lower side of the building to have a Sallyport, but everything else will be pretty much at grade with the finished floor level of the building, the main level on the upper floor. So essentially, this is a one-story building with a walkout basement to service the sheriff's Sallyport needs.
And that first entrance off of Betsy Way, in my estimate, would be a controlled access.
Yes.
With a gate.
Yes.
And it's got some limited parking there for
Yes.
for staff
convenience.
right there behind the Sallyport. But that would be that only purpose for that entrance.
Mm-hmm.
then your public parking in front of the building. Monica, how many spots did we show? It was 58, I think.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
I think 58. And then, you know, one of the, I think, really, you know, customer service aspects of this building is the drive-through for a clerk's office to provide vehicle transactions through a drive-through, but also for tax collection as well during that time. That's our hope, at least. Sheriff and Rebecca, would you all like to comment on that? Just being a big plus, I think it'll be a real plus for the services.
And we have 2 lanes shown for drive-through services.
Both of those be available for either tax collection or somebody renewing or.
There's some logistics that we'd have to work out on the tax collection.
I would have to put one of my personnel over with the clerk's personnel during tax season, just for the drive-throughs. How many clerk spots, windows do you have?
Yeah, and we're going to see a floor plan in just a moment that might answer some of those questions for you.
And then, you know, the drive-through is covered, but if you look at the back, in the curve to turn around and leave, there's just a rectangle there that looks like a covered area. That's going to be a cantilevered covered area that will allow for a clerk, if there's a problem, they can say, please pull forward to the covered area. The clerk can then walk out and deal with it, and if it's raining, it provides some cover. It also will allow for vehicle inspections from our sheriff's office staff for, you know, inclement weather as well. So that we didn't want to put a covered, sheltered area out front. It just thought it would be better in the back there in that drive-through. So Monica, continue.
Well, Judge, I had one question, and it kind of relates with the site plan. When we designed Great Crossings Park many years ago, we had the belief that this would possibly happen, and we're at that point today. And one of the things we did not do is finish the walking track. And
So can I comment to that?
Yeah, that's
the original site plan had the staff parking, which is the on the top of the sheet. That's the staff-controlled parking. That parking was behind the building.
Yeah.
In an effort to keep as much green space in that upper area and to provide for an easier walking trail, not having to be, you know, so far out, we moved the staff parking up, and that made it a more shallow, you know, footprint on the spot. And I really had intent about, you know, I didn't want a walking trail in front, walking across the traffic lanes. So, you know, we specifically moved that so we'd have easier room for walking trail. And my hope is that we can address that need soon.
Okay.
JR and I have looked at it 25 times of like where could we, you know, where we could put it and thought about it. So.
Okay, great.
Is it okay from here?
Well, if you'd come to the podium, that'd probably be best. Thank you, Rebecca.
Judge Covington, magistrates. I wanted to add to that concept. I think our public is going to really love, our taxpayers will love that added convenience and efficiency of drive-through renewals. I think we needed to do it well to make sure it would be efficient, that you wouldn't get trapped there and, you know, not able to have another option. So I think we've worked through that, and we've with the covered area and the pull ahead, just like when they don't have fries ready at McDonald's, you know. That's really inconvenient when you just want to grab some quick fries. So if you've got the efficiency of it, we want to make sure that it really flows very flawlessly. But I recently had a conversation with Magistrate Wallace about also the concept of drive-through voting. And I think that this could be a real bonus for us, and if we capitalize on this opportunity, if we're creative and forward-thinking, and currently members of my staff and I are in conversation with some county clerks that utilize this because they already had maybe a banking facility that they were utilizing as their main office or their satellite office. And they were able to develop this concept of drive-through voting. And I recently saw a presentation on this. Voters loved that concept. And so I think if we can work that into this concept as well, we can really, really get a lot of use, and our public can really benefit from this. So we've got collection of tax bills at that point in time. We've got drive-through renewals, and then we've got drive-through voting. And I think we can accomplish all of that with this facility. So it's really exciting to think about the opportunities for our community. And then we'll be a model for other counties as well on all of these aspects. So I think we've got a really great project going.
And while you're there, Rebecca, if you don't care to comment, like in all our meetings and conversations, in conversations meeting with Sheriff Hampton, that front community room, training room can be utilized for election school. It can be utilized for Sheriff Hampton, for a variety of training. That is so flexible, that spot, and we really thought it would be important. But the other aspect of what we're doing as well is the basement that's unfinished. Monica and her team and Mike's team have really streamlined the entrance, and I think it makes it very appealing, but at the same time functional. Like when we have an election, primary or a general election, people can come in, go through one door that we can set to open by access control, and they can use the elevator or the steps and go down to the basement, and we'll have it'll be concrete floors, but it'll have LED lighting, and voting machines can be spread out, and that can serve as another option if the clerk decides to use it as a voting center, a voting area. We just can't have enough of those spaces. Would you comment on that?
Yes, we train about 200 or so precinct officers before every election. And so we have to make arrangements with our other facilities in the community. Most recently, our library has been, Patty Burnside, as you mentioned, the director there, has been very accommodating for both training and our vote center. We've utilized the extension office in the past for that purpose, but yes, to be able to have our equipment there and have a consistent facility where we can do training and then turn that into our vote center, that's going to be a great opportunity for us.
Okay. And we'll show the basement here in a minute. So, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
Rebecca's there. Going back to the drive-through voting, so is that like an absentee ballot drop-off, or did somebody actually?
No, this was actually conducted as election day or early or election day voting. It had to be. I think the concept of what we use for delivery of those terminals has to work for voting, but we actually would have to have a precinct officer stationed there to be able to utilize our e-poll books for the sign-in roster. And then, yes, and a portable voting machine where the voter, we still have to keep all of the same provisions in place where we're not touching the voter's ballot, but they're able to be issued a ballot and able to vote that ballot. And we've seen a model for this, and I think that we could accomplish this with this facility.
It's really during their car, it's really in-person voting.
It is, yes.
They're going to be able to sign the book. They're going to be able to,
Yes.
check your ID, whatever you do, and they vote.
Yes, that's exactly
We're going
right.
to contract with Chick-fil-A as well to help streamline it. All right.
That's right. If we could serve hot fries and coffee, yeah, that would.
So, yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you.
Monica, was there any other comments or any questions from anyone about the site plan as presented? And I think the efficiency of having this facility right across from the road department will just make maintenance of our vehicles that much more efficient. JR, you and I have talked about that numerous times, and Sheriff Hampton as well. He's right there. So if there's any other questions,
One other quick one, is the staff parking the one furthest away from Betsy?
the staff parking is at the top of the sheet.
Yes.
And that'll be controlled access. That will be fenced, and
So that whole lot will be.
yeah, and you'll have a gate in, but in my mind, we'll have another gate on that sidewalk in the back that really keeps the whole thing locked up. It'll have a magnetic lock that allows people in and out to walk through. With their badge, will open it.
There's 2 drive-through lanes. Looking at this, would be potential to add, if this became a bottleneck, be a potential to add another lane to that?
You sure you could?
It looks like room.
Good question. So, Monica, do you have any other comments, and you want to switch over to the next page?
No, yeah, let's move ahead.
All right.
Thank you, Andrew. So what you have in front of you is a floor plan where the doors into the lobby are at the lower part of your page. And so we have sort of a common lobby that folks would enter into. The community training room is immediately to your right. We're showing 60 chairs in that room with storage. Off of that lobby, again, you can turn left to go into the sheriff's lobby or right into the clerk's lobby. So they have distinct spaces in which they will operate in and will serve the public. If we look at the clerk's area, we have met with the clerk and the clerk's staff on numerous occasions, both at a conference table and in their space, to look around and observe and learn how they work and how they would like to do things. So the plan that you're seeing is in direct response of staff requests. We have windows there where the clerk stations are, much like you have downstairs now. Patrons would walk in and see a counter with windows and such. And then you can see how the drive-through lanes, they're on the right-hand side of the space. We're showing 2 of those with a large window opening into the clerk space where those folks can be served in that drive-through capacity.
There's actually 6 stations plus a supervisor's station.
And then providing them with restrooms, a small break room, some storage, a space for their server, and some offices, 2 offices, and then access out into the back lobby. If you notice that to the top of your page, that back lobby is for staff access only. And that's where both sheriff department and clerk staff will enter the building and then turn left or right and go into their respective areas. There is a door shown just to the plan north of the restrooms that are located in the very center of the building. That door is controlled, so public will not be allowed beyond that point unless there's reason for them to go down into the basement, say if there's a voting center there. Day in and day out, that is a controlled door. Public will have access to those restrooms there in the corridor and then into the sheriff or into the clerk, and that's all at that point. There is an elevator and stairs shown that can access a partially finished basement, which we'll look at in just a moment. Then if we go into the sheriff's department offices there, likewise, we've worked things out with the sheriff and staff members with several meetings to get this layout. We've got sheriff clerk windows that you see there in the lobby. We've got a few interview rooms where outside folks coming in to file a report or needs to talk to an officer about something, they can do that, or a deputy. We've got the various offices required for a bookkeeper, victims advocate, and so on. You'll see workstations behind the clerk windows there, and then we also have a large meeting room, which serves their department needs. We have a break room, and all the lieutenant and captain type spaces, work area, as you move through the plan. The detectives are in the left-hand lower corner of your plan, and we're accommodating their requests for various meeting spaces and restrooms for folks coming in there as well. Command staff offices are located in the center of the front of the building, and they have their own suite. The suite entries into the various spaces, the vision by the sheriff is that those are glass, so there's transparency out into the rest of the department, but yet they are afforded privacy for conversations and so on. Well, that in a nutshell is just a brief run-through with the plan. If there's any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Monica, if you look where the lieutenants are stationed,
Yes.
there's little boxes in there, and they're not labeled. Are those closets, or?
Yes, those are closets.
Okay, so they have closets, but then, and Tony, this might have been something that you prefaced, or you had preference toward, is like there's not one in the sheriff's office or the chief deputy. I was just wondering why some had closets and some didn't.
I didn't even catch that until the lieutenants, am I looking? Are they
To the far left.
top left?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, how big of a closet are we talking about?
A small walk-in closet.
Yeah.
Essentially, we had extra space, and we needed when you see the basement plan, there's a certain
Right.
space that we needed for the sally port, and that stacks above it. And so we've never had anyone complain about us giving them too much storage. So providing a few closets for gear and that kind of thing, that's what we did. But we certainly could provide that for the command staff if they requested that.
It was just threw me off because some of the
Yeah.
other identified officers didn't have them, but then some did. So
Yeah,
that's
a good point. Mhm. Again, Sheriff, we look at these plans over and over, and then something comes up like
That's
this.
correct.
But it'll cause us to think and see what he wants us to
it's
do.
Mike's fault. So we
Yeah, of course.
Well, the closet I have right now is that wide.
Yeah.
I'm literally telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And it's so,
It would be reasonable
I
to
understand.
provide the sheriff's office
I don't even know why they put it there.
closet.
So.
right.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the basement plan. So the only finished, or the space, I shouldn't start that way, I'm sorry. When you come down the stairs or the elevator that are located in the center of the plan, you can enter into a doorway that's a secure door, and that accesses the sheriff's department. Primarily locker rooms and fitness are right there when you first walk in. As you proceed down the hallway, we have ammunition storage, gun cleaning and prep, evidence storage, processing of evidence, interview rooms, and so on. There is a back door out of the basement area, as well as into the sally port. The sally port is arranged on the site to where cars would enter in on the lower side or toward the front of the building, drive on through. There's room for a couple of cars in there, and then can exit out the rear. We did provide on the site plan 3 or 4 just convenience parking spaces in case an officer needs to park there for a moment, run in, get something, come out, or what have you. Or they may have a car that they've searched and they need to move it out for a few minutes and so on. So we've provided enough driveway area and a couple of parking spaces to service the sally port. And then there's the exterior egress there at the hallway, which is required. So the basement plan is pretty straightforward. The remainder of the basement would be unfinished or minimally finished. and can be provided for future use and some storage.
So a couple questions on the Sally Port, on that single door. I mean, I know they're ADA accessible.
Yes.
But my question would be probably maybe for Tony and how they do things procedurally. Tony, do you envision, like, if you all have arrested somebody and it's two deputies are having to walk through the door, that you would need a double door in that Sally Port area? And then to follow up with that, just as long as it's a possible future voting space,
Yes.
do we need to have bigger access for wheelchairs or where it says processing there? You know, I mean, if I'm going to go down and vote, I guess I take the elevator.
You're never going to be there on that end.
Okay, so you'd never come in that way.
You
would only
use the elevator.
Yes.
And then come in.
Okay. Yeah, but so you're saying that everybody will be funneled through the front of the building, and they'll take the elevator down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and they'll never come through the Sally Port area?
No.
Okay, that's good.
They shouldn't.
Okay. And then the next question would be for Rebecca. Is the plan to, this space here, is the plan to store the voting machines in this area?
We have been contemplating that. That's been in our discussion, whether we can do that. Because we're fortunate that our vendor is in Lexington, so that's made it pretty easy to a short distance to transport and so forth. But we do pay those storage fees each month for the voting machines to keep them secure. So that would be optimal if we could have an area that secured them properly and we had space for it. But we are in conversation.
Right, but then the sheriff, you also were looking to do some kind of scenarios and training in that area too?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there would be plenty of room. How many machines would you have, Rebecca, at the most?
So we have our 46, double that. What do we deal with? Maybe 100
Yeah.
machines.
Anyway, we could build portable walls to do STEM training and different scenario training. Also get training mats for training down there. I think we could easily accommodate that, even if you all decide you want to store voting machines down there, as long as there's no integrity
I mean, there's
issues.
several thousand feet.
Are there any integrity issues with that and it
Yes.
being at Harpton?
There are some key times, for example, the requirement after the election for those ballots to remain quarantined in the machines. So that's a time that they need to be particularly secure. And then, of course, after we do our inspection, that's in the days prior to the election. So there are some key times that they would have to be secured properly. Being under video surveillance is an important requirement, and we've talked about
We
that
have,
as well.
yes.
So Monica, if this is something that could be a possibility, I don't think the most ideal situation would be to bring those machines down the elevator. I would assume that a possibility would be to bring it through the Sally Port and then roll them into that area. Is there enough access in that Sally Port, that initial outdoor, that door right there?
Mm-hmm.
If that's potentially on the radar.
The Sally Port certainly could handle it. The man door that's accessing the corridor from the Sally Port, we could talk with our end users and see if they would like to have that be a double door. The door that's there meets accessibility guidelines, and certainly voting machines would roll through that. But in terms of just ease of use, with a wider opening, we could certainly look into that.
Just trying to think for the future.
Yep, it's never a bad thing to do.
So the last thing I was going to mention is, in that unfinished area, I would hope that we could, I don't know if I want to use the word polish, but you would have, I wouldn't want to leave it a raw concrete floor because of the dust.
Right.
You'd want to, seal it somehow and, maybe polish it, seal it, and then and then have LED lighting, that would be the minimal, that would be what I would be anticipating there. So if there's no other questions in the basement there, then I'll ask Monica to turn to the exterior.
Hey, Jeff, one quick one. I'm sure you've already considered that. I don't know if
It will,
basement?
yes,
Because I know you're also going to have your HVAC and all that.
absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So what you're seeing here are some renderings generated by our team to give you a picture of what the building might look like. The goal here is that we keep it simple, just in terms of being responsive to our budget. The colors that you're seeing, we think will match up real well with the buildings across the street, keeping in the gray sort of metal scheme. We have added the brown material that you see is like a synthetic wood, for lack of a better term, a composite material that looks like wood. Many uses of this have been proven to be successful. We also have a lot of glass on the building. So what you're seeing on the top picture is a view of the community room on the corner. And then the bottom picture is sort of a shot of the lobby and the entrance. The sheriff's windows are straight ahead and the community room is to the right. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see two more images. The one on the top is looking at the Sally Port, accessing that lower level. And even though we're showing a retaining wall there, we're not 100% certain that we have to have that yet. We'll try to do as much as we can with grading. We may have to have one that's smaller than that, so I needed to point that out because I said a few minutes ago we weren't going to have retaining walls. You can see on the bottom picture is of the back, and there we're looking at sloping of the ground. This is the view. The large windows in the middle are the sheriff's department looking out back toward the park. And in fact, Judge, this has the old parking lot scheme
I was going
on
to say,
it. Right. Which
that will be grass,
we've
not
now
parking.
taken that away, right?
Yeah.
So
And a walking trail.
a walking trail. So the only part of the ground plane that we're going to have to excavate out is to accommodate the Sally Port. Everything else we'll be able to maintain a good grade on.
And
yeah.
I would add that, once we get out there and you see what it looks like, actually, that's too steep to mow and do easily, then
We
I
can
would
recommend
vote for
some ground cover on it
Yeah.
or something, yeah. Some plant material that would help you not have to maintain that. So if we could go back one slide, we'll just leave it right there and entertain any comments or questions.
So, Judge, coming from the school world, we have people with the state that come in and they do an assessment of school safety and all that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, I'm sure Tony has thought about this and his staff about safety for the sheriff's office, and you all can help me. I don't know if there's, bulletproof glass is used. I know there's secure doors. There's special kind of doors that you all use. Or maybe I'm just thinking that you do that. Has that all been taken in consideration?
Well, the lobby for accreditation standards and also for safety, obviously, that'll be bulletproof where the clerk sat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you talked about putting any in the front of the building or not.
We've talked about it loosely, but I certainly haven't made any
I
decisions.
think I kind of sort of requested one in my office, but
Right.
Right. Sure.
Right.
The other thing is, and look, you gotta understand, I've been doing these buildings a lot, and you always try to think through every scenario. And one of the mistakes that we made on designing the pavilion was when you walk into the pavilion, I don't believe you all designed that.
We didn't.
But when you walk in the pavilion, there's a hallway to the right, hallway to the left. There's this beautiful tall area and let sunlight in. But what we did not think about was when you go to heat that thing, all the heat went to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pavilion had huge gas and electric bills because all the heat was in the top of the area and nobody utilized it. And so as I look at this entrance, it's very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But my fear is we're going to heat this thing. Now all the heat's going to go to the top.
Mm-hmm.
What have you all walked through that and
Yes.
thought about how you
Could
would?
we turn back to the plan? Thank you, right there. So the lobby, if you'll look at that, if you'll look at the lobby, Chad, it's actually quite a small space. So you're right, we've designed it to have a tall ceiling, but it's not very big. And it's controlled. So at the pavilion, it's a very tall, large space, and all that air goes up high, but it also just goes away. Here it's very controlled and contained. And then each individual lobby is contained with a lower ceiling. So think about that lobby really as a vestibule space. And it may not be heated and cooled to the perfect temperature, because it's really serving like an airlock. Are you following me?
Yeah.
But so the reason for the walls and the doors separating the clerk and the sheriff lobby is because those spaces we want to be controlled and comfortable for the staff and the visitors. Now, that lobby is not very large, and I think we could design in recirculating, circulating that air. Correct. So, but point well taken, and we can speak to that as we design the systems on down the road. And
just always thinking about energy efficiencies and
of course,
and try to not make a mistake where we're having to pay big bills and not get any benefit of it.
Understand.
And those fans do quite well.
They do. They're excellent.
It's amazing.
It is.
So, what other questions or comments? The only other thing that I would ask, and we've discussed this, is, the community room's like 60 chairs. That's probably 30 people at tables, is what was mentioned. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can get probably 40.
Probably 40.
Yeah.
And then, when we put it out to bid, could we have an addendum that actually made that a little bit bigger? And we just could compare it.
We can. Well, actually, this is the perfect time to bring up the professional cost estimator, because that's.
Well, if there's no other questions about them.
One other comment.
Yeah.
You made a statement about the retaining wall, as though, in my view, retaining walls can become space savers. To me.
Yeah.
You put a retaining wall in, you need less space to rank or park it down, leave that driveway. You just put that retaining, so she seemed like she really didn't want to put a retaining wall, and I get that, but actually.
Right next, adjacent to the Sally Port doorway, you're probably going to have some level of retaining wall right there, because
Otherwise, we're going to have to do something to get that to grade down.
And as Judge Covington said, you got to still maintain the landscape. So
Right. Well, so the retaining wall, in my view, is kind of the best deal. We don't have to take a bunch of space trying to grade down.
Judge, I'll just say this. This has been something worked on way before you had come here, but you have picked the ball up and carried it. And Tony has been patient for a long time, and the deputies. And it's a beautiful building. I think we really need to move forward with this. And appreciate what Mike's and his team's done. And if there's no other comment, I'll make a motion for approval with some tweaks that we're going to talk about.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other?
With that second, I want to make a quick comment.
Okay.
I know when I was first on the court, soon to be 8 years ago, I made an appointment with the sheriff to visit, and he probably doesn't remember this. My first thought was, wow, they're standing on top of one another in here. I mean,
8 years ago.
8 years ago, and I'm sure it's gotten better. But one of the other things that happened was I needed to use the restroom, and you kind of had to stand in line. And I think you probably don't remember that, but he said, "Let me check out my hallway." Which that's a true story, and I was just amazed that they were getting it done, but they were in close quarters.
I appreciate that, and I think it's a true need, and I think the way we're going about it, the placement, the duality of the clerk's satellite. We'll always have, an office here for vehicle transactions and the other things, but adding that flexibility and customer service aspect, and then the sheriff's office and the location for school safety purposes, so close to Great Crossings, so close to Western, ECS. The new Scott Kenny High School will be, 90 seconds down the road. We've talked about all this, and I think it meets the needs. So we've got a motion, we have a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We appreciate your all's work. Mike, would you like to comment on the Robert Pass Associates proposal and why you're estimating it, why you're suggesting this?
Sure. This is the great way to close out the meeting, somebody coming up here and asking you to spend some more money. But, that's the way it is. And what we have been doing over the last couple of years, and it's just only been highlighted by the current construction business, the way things are right now, that we are more and more utilizing professional cost estimators just to control the budget and to have a real world response on what these things cost. Because what we're concerned about, the construction industry right now is just like every other industry in the country, including ours. We've got 15 positions open at Branstetter Carroll right now in our 4 offices.
15.
If we could find the people to fill those positions. The construction industry is the same way. We don't have enough labor. We have supply chain shortages, and it's the same thing that everybody deals with these days. What my proposal to you is to bring on a professional construction estimator, not a contractor, is somebody who works only in developing cost estimates. And we have suggested Robert Pass because he's the only guy in Kentucky that does it. The city of Lexington works with him. The city of Louisville works with him. And we have worked with him in the past. What we have in front of us is a proposal for the EMS to do the SD estimate, which is schematic design estimate for $2,500, the CD estimate for $4,000. The sheriff's office is obviously a larger facility, a schematic design estimate of $4,000 and a CD estimate of $6,000. And let me explain. The schematic design estimate is something that we could take what we've shown you here tonight, and we would need to write narratives on the type of HVAC systems, the type of utilities, finishes, and things like that we'd have in the buildings, and they could come back to us with a schematic design estimate that says we really think you're at this number. I mean, the number that we've been hanging our hats on since we gave you, several months ago, everybody knows where inflation is right now, and the construction world is probably worse in inflation than everything. Although, when I go to the grocery store or I buy a meal, I'm having a hard time buying that inflation's only risen the price of food by 11%. It seems to me like it's gone up significantly more than that. And I think that's what we're talking about in the construction industry as well. The primary benefit, as Mr. Wallace was asking me before the meeting, is that we get numbers that are real before we go too far down the road. If we design the sheriff's office building and it comes in $8 million over budget, are you prepared to spend that $8 million, or we go back and start all over again? And that's what we won't have to do if we have better numbers up front of somebody who's actually monitors this stuff on a daily basis. I mean, we provide cost estimates all the time, and we used to do it. We used to do it and be very accurate, but it's gotten harder and harder to do and have any sense of reality or any sense of confidence that what the numbers we're giving you are going to actually be right. I know you've all, we saw in all the papers, Fayette County bid a middle school that was supposed to cost $49 million, and it came in at $94 million. And they sat on it for a while, and all it did was cost more 3 months later. But they reworked everything, and they're building a $94 million middle school now instead of a $49 million middle school. So, I think that would help us avoid that situation.
Mike, let me ask you a question as far as in terms of putting it out for bid, because I've been doing government a long time, and I've never been in a spot where we approved 2 buildings at the same time. And would it be beneficial to bid it out as a whole package? So we have a contractor that would build both buildings versus bid one on one building and one on other. Is there any cost savings by doing that?
Chad, I really think there are, and that would be the ideal scenario where we would bid both of these buildings at the same time. But I would also bid them separately so that you have the option. So if you have a smaller contractor that might be able to do the EMS building that doesn't have the bonding capacity to do the sheriff's building, can bid one and you might get a better price. The idea that you've got one contractor building both buildings is attractive because theoretically he's got better control of his resources when he's got 2 projects to work on them that are 3 or 4 miles apart versus 45 miles apart, going from one job to another. So theoretically, yes, you would reduce your overhead. Hopefully you'd reduce your overhead and profit on it too, and make it simpler.
Thank you.
And then what we've also discussed is doing direct purchasing throughout on both and such. But it seems like the CD stage is much more detailed. You get specs.
The CD is a final estimate of the drawings before it goes out to bid. So, and we will monitor that because a lot of things when you go, just as Monica talked to you about, a lot of things change. A lot of things aren't identified totally at the schematic design level. Like Sheriff Hampton mentioned, the ballistic glazing. How much of that building is ballistically protected. We are designing buildings now to a much higher level of security just because that's the world we live in. I mean, if it were up to me, you wouldn't walk into this building and be able to walk upstairs. You'd have to go through something downstairs to let you into the building. And if it's a new building, that's the way we're going to design it. You can make decisions about what level of security you want, but from the Mike Carroll point of view, you walk in a building and you don't go any farther until somebody else lets you in. I mean, it's just, again, that's the world we live in these days.
So that's Mike's recommendation, and you have two separate proposals from Robert Pass and Associates. One is for the Sheriff Clerk's Office, SD estimate 4,000, CD estimate 6, EMS 2,500 or 4. I wouldn't see any reason why you wouldn't do CD on both.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do this, so we're talking about $10,000.
I think it's a great idea. We need to know where we are and what things are actually going to cost.
So if so we have a motion there. Is there a second?
I have a question.
All right.
When you get to the CD estimate, is there a guarantee that he's within
No.
a certain percentage? I mean, put a fees off for $8 million, we're still.
You're not going to buy a guarantee for that kind of money, Mr. Lyons. No. It's a better chance at reality. But it is. There's no guarantees when it comes to bidding, especially these days. I mean, this is, I've been in this business for 44 years, and it's never been like this. Never.
So let me ask one question. I was going to ask this question. If we make this investment and it comes back significantly more than what we anticipate, can we more easily pivot to doing value engineering?
Yes.
Than having to wait and go through a bidding process. So we immediately pivot and do the value engineering and then go from there.
I actually didn't think of that, Judge Covington, but that is correct because we will have all the data. I mean, your final CD estimate coming from this estimator is going to be like 20 pages of detailed estimates. So then to go into value engineering with the contractor, we've got 2 sets of documents to look at as to what things cost and to compare them. So, yeah, you're right.
the CD on both the sheriff's and the EMS bill.
But not the SD?
So help me. See, I thought it was, Mike, you're going to have to help me. So I thought it was SD or CD.
No.
So it's 10,000.
It's both. It's both.
10,000 plus 6,500. So it's 16,500.
16.5, yeah.
I apologize. I thought it was one or the other.
Yeah, actually, Judge Covington, I'm more interested in getting the SD estimate at this point in time. If you want to approve the SD estimate and then figure out later if you want to do the CD estimate, that's fine.
Okay, so if your recommendation is just the SD on both of them.
Yeah, I want to get that budget tied down at this preliminary level.
That's much cheaper than
That's the SD is specification.
schematic.
Right.
Schematic.
Right.
So what that'll give us is, well, it'll come from you, but what you'll be able to tell us is kind of where we look like we're going to be financially, which would allow us to make a decision right then.
Right.
To say, whoa, wait a minute.
That's exactly what I'm looking for, is to, before we go all the way down that road and find out we can't do this.
We go through like we would have normally pre-COVID, I guess,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. We went through all of this and all that money would be spent. And then we could have still gotten to, whoa, this is way out of our budget. This way, actually, we can prevent possibly those next steps until we can say, hey, we can or we can't.
That's correct. That's correct. You know, it's, to me, it's just getting that initial estimate in front of us. So, okay, this is where the market is right now. So
if the motion is for
So,
the SD monies,
so would you amend your motion just for the SD on both? All right. So we got a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
I'll sign this and give it to you. And
yeah, if you send it to us, I'll get it to.
Now, Judge, you were asking Cam a question, and that was about the drilling at the Farrak. Mikey. Geotech, there you go. That's a professional service, I would assume.
that's professional service. Perhaps I can authorize that.
Yeah.
It's less than
Yeah,
total.
we've got the proposals in from Thoroughbred to do it. This, local firm once the site's identified.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and move forward with that because it's professional
They've done that on the
services.
sheriff's office now. They've done the drilling on the sheriff's office site. The report will get into us next week. The survey, did it come in today? I wasn't in the office today.
I'm not aware that it did.
Okay, the survey was supposed to come in today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll give these to you and thank you all. We're very excited about this, and I think it's going to meet the needs. And I know the sheriff and clerk are excited as well. So very much appreciate the court's vision and support for it as well. So moving right along though, new business. Got just 2 items or 3 items. JR, could you share where we are on paving and just give a brief update on county road paving?
Yes, sir, Judge, members of the court.
I'm going to get Monica out of here before she coughs any more on you.
Thank you, Mike.
Y'all were kind enough to give me $1 million on repaving this year. We've got about half of the roads done, a little over half the roads done, 6 mile, moving right along on all the roads. So hopefully by late fall, we'll have all of them done. Of course, y'all were here, Senator Thayer and Representative Pratt gave us another $400,000 to do roughly 4.5 miles of a road, which is greatly appreciated, and everything's going real good on the paving end.
Is that going to take place next year, JR?
I'm sorry.
Will that take place, Old
Oxford.
Oxford next year?
probably this fall.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Okay,
from talking to everyone, that's what the plan is.
okay.
And the trash crew that y'all gave me, the 2 extra employees, is going great. I think the last count I had last week was 340 bags of trash has been picked up, and
It's so awesome that you're keeping up with that.
yeah.
And I think it's important to show
It is.
what we're getting, and, you know, I just really appreciate it.
And I drive the roads all the time, and it looks, you can see they've made a dent. You can't do it all with 2 employees, but we're making a good
A
dent.
dent, and we're still planning on contracting with
Yes.
the sports.
First of November.
JR goes way back. He knows that's part of the grant process too, and he's always
Yes,
done that
sir.
for years. He's done it for years, keep track of that money, so.
All right. Thank
y'all
you,
very
Jay.
much for everything.
No, I appreciate what y'all are doing. And then Lori Saunders, Tourism Director, asked us to consider contribution on a stage, a mobile stage. It'll actually have potential for revenue, you know, and the city, I think, contributed $21,000 towards it. I think she was, from the email, cost estimate was up in the 90s, if I remember right. But, you know, I'd be interested in what you all have to say, or feedback if y'all are interested in that prospect. And then we might as well, you know, we've talked about this publicly. I am working with Branstetter Carroll on plans to present related to a farmer's market pavilion. This stage could, the ideal is that the stage could also fit in the farmer's market pavilion, and then be moved out easily too. And yeah, I'm just not in a position to share any more about the pavilion quite yet. We need to talk a little bit more about that. But what feedback would y'all give on that?
So they manage the stage, they
The tourism would,
put it up, take it
yeah.
down, store it.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you that she'd be asking JR to store it out there. I bet you $100 on that. But
I do it for Lori.
yeah, but it you know, it would be on a trailer that a pickup truck could move, but then you push a button and it folds out, and I mean, it's, you know, like when we had the Spectrum thing,
Right.
we would use that,
Right.
and she wouldn't be charging us.
Well, Judge, my thinking was to talk about the farmer's market, so you're saying it can be used in conjunction with that, so.
That would be the hope.
Yeah.
And I need to double check on dimensions, but I think that's what, I need to look on the height. And the farmer's market hadn't been nailed down, but we could try to coordinate that.
Okay.
And they have quite a few events, I guess, concerts, whatever, little parades and festivals. And
I think she'd put it to good use.
Got it.
She hustles.
I was by here Saturday before last, and there was a band out in the parking lot, just down the blacktop playing, and a lot of people around. I don't know what it was. I just happened to drive by and see it.
It'd be so much nicer if we had a pavilion for both the farmer's market and their vendors, and then also for concerts, kind of little just a place. Kelly, are you making a motion?
I think we match the city.
All right.
I'll second.
Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then lastly, Isaiah House. I shared the plans for the site that they are doing the renovations. They are our partner. Though that cost there that we're paying is approximately $7 per square foot. Other places in the community, I don't think you can touch for less than $15, $16 a square foot. They're wanting to make a long-term commitment, and they asked if we would consider any partnership on it. I think Cam has shared that it could go into the lease agreement, and we could do it that way. But I think they're making a significant investment and plan on being here and serving our community, down the road. And I wanted your all's feedback.
I think there's also a significant savings over time from, the agreement we had prior.
Correct. With this agreement, we're not paying an $11,000 per month service fee to the provider, whereas Isaiah's house bid is it's only lease and utilities.
Rent and utilities,
Yeah.
which we were doing that.
We were doing that as well. But I wanted your all's feedback. I think a partnership to make the facility as efficient, professional as possible. I think there's merit in doing that.
Like a $59,000 cost.
It's $59,500, and now I had one question, and I'll $15,000 for equipment rental. I put that in my email that I wanted to try to get a little bit more feedback. I don't know what they would be renting in there as much because Isaiah House has an arm that does the carpentry. They have a team, and they have to pay that labor, but it's at a reduced rate. But they have to bill for the labor, and then the rental price that was in there was $15,000 for rental and permitting, and I thought that was a question mark, and I tried to get additional information. So regardless, there's a significant investment there, and if somebody wanted to make a comment and suggestion, I'd value that.
Judge, I'm for a partial contribution, but not for the full amount.
And I would not suggest the full amount either. I agree with you, Chad.
In the email, didn't he say that they were going to do it whether we contributed or not?
They did. But in the spirit of just being a partner,
So they're not expecting the full.
they're not expecting the full amount.
Yeah.
I think they would be, 25, 30, I don't know. And we could even, say, hey, we'll contribute X up to this, even or percentage, if you want to put in a percentage number.
We're not voting tonight anyway, right?
Oh, we are.
Oh, I thought we have to have a contract.
No, it's just we'd be approving a contribution on the
Okay.
on the
Pam said
estimate.
in this email that it would have to be added to the contract.
We're going to add it to the lease contract. So we'll add $20,000 towards the.
So you're voting on it without
We've
having
already
it.
approved their bid, so the agreement would be to reflect that. You're just wanting to add this to the agreement.
Their estimate is for $59,500 to do the work. They asked us to consider a contribution that will go in the lease. We haven't finalized the lease. This would finalize the lease.
And it's a 2-year commitment, right?
Yeah. And if you wanted to say, hey, we'll contribute 40% of the final costs and then submit, but not to exceed X. That could be written into the lease.
I'll make the motion that we fund up to half of the cost, not to exceed $25,000. Is that reasonable?
That sounds reasonable.
Well, if their estimate, half of the cost is, if their estimate right is $30,000.
Can that be put into the lease agreement?
I'm writing it down. Yes, sir.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Well, I mean, I'm in favor of helping because even if we went to the half, which I know that's not the motion, but if we did, that was 3 months with the previous.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't even need to say half, I would just say up to 20,000.
No, he said 25,000.
25,000.
But if that rental, if they were to reduce it,
Yeah, by saying
Then
will contribute up to 50% of the cost,
Yeah.
up to 25. If it came in at if it came in at 42,
Yeah.
you know.
I'll second his motion.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Is there any public comment? Any comment from any of our staff? Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All those in favor? We are adjourned. Yeah. You buying?